So here's what happened. Nerimon tagged Badmaths tagged Lore Bubble tagged Music from Blue Skies, Music from Blue Skies tagged Will Vlog for Food, Will Vlog for Food tagged Jammy James 2150, and then Will Vlog for Food deleted his account, but his tags live on. So Jammy James 2150 tagged Frogandhi tagged Higgy Pop UK, Higgy Pop UK tagged Iggy35, Iggy35 tagged Morphine2, Morphine2 tagged Experiments in Honesty tagged Prepoceros, and Prepoceros tagged Declawed Cats, namely me. And so I'm going to proceed to make this as my official entry in the YouTube vlog tag. I also have another video that is going to respond to another tag that I had from alanison, and that's I'm considering my secondary entry. That one is a little less serious vein. So I've decided not to go with Natalie's one fact among 4 lies, but go back to the tradition of saying 5 things that are actually true. The gimmick, though, that I have chosen to use is that I'm going to do them by decade. I'm going to have one fact from each decade, starting with the 1950s when I wasn't born yet, but I have a fact anyway, and the fact is that my parents were Trotskyites in the 1950s. And my father even had an alias, because back in the McCarthy era, if you were on the far left, you were suspected of being in league with the Soviet Union. Of course, the Trotskyites actually hated the Soviet Union because they thought that Stalin had ruined communism. They were Trotskyites in the 50s, and their political opinions changed later. My mother eventually became a sort of leftish liberal Democrat. My father was kind of all over the map. He voted for Reagan a couple of times. He would actually quote Marx and Lenin and use those as part of his explanation of why you should vote for Reagan. After that, he moved to the left a little again. Now I think he's sort of a mainstream Democrat. Fact number 2 from the 1960s is that when I was a little kid, I had a raant-raant. Now, you may ask, what is a raant-raant? You know how some kids have security blankets, like Linus and Peanuts has security blanket. And I actually think I had a blanket also for a while, but that wasn't a big issue. I had this little rag that I guess it was like soft. I liked the feeling of it on my skin, and I carried it around everywhere. And I called it a raant-raant, which is kind of interesting because it has a nasalized sound in it that doesn't normally occur in the English language. And nobody in my family spoke, at least in front of me, any language that included nasalized sounds. But I guess when you're a little kid, you're still more malleable in terms of the language sounds that you create. I can guess the etymology of raant-raant is that my mother said something like that's a ratty rag or something like that, and I morphed ratty rag into raant-raant. But that's just a theory. I have no memory of that. Fact number 3 from the 70s is actually from the very end of the 70s, is that I used to have a beard. And actually I didn't start growing the beard until the very end of the 70s, so it didn't even fully grow in until the 80s. But, you know, the 70s was a pretty boring decade, what can you say? I started growing a beard when I started college, and it looked pretty good on me, I think, as beards go, but I decided I didn't like the style. I didn't want to look like a hippie. So, at the end of my junior year, I shaved it off. Okay, so the 1980s. I have only been to one rock concert in my life, and that was a Ramones concert in 1982 at the Boston Metro. I don't think the Boston Metro exists anymore. I went to a Ramones concert, and I had so much beer. I think it was beer that I was drinking, but by the time the Ramones came on, I was not at all sober, and I really don't recall anything about the Ramones' actual performance. I recall people saying, "Hey ho, let's go," when they wanted them to come on stage. And for some reason I don't remember anything about the band that opened for them either. That probably is because they sucked. The other thing I remember is I lost my coat, almost lost my jacket. It was, very cold. It was the middle of the winter. And I checked my jacket, and I think I forgot to take the coat check. And fortunately, the guy that was after me in line was one of the people that I was there with, so he noticed that I'd forgotten it and he picked it up for me. So that was quite lucky. Having to walk home in the winter in Boston without a coat would not be good. The other thing I remember is that same guy who caught my coat checks tag for me also said he knew what it was like to be a molecule. He was a chemistry major, and he said after going to that concert he knew what it was like to be a molecule because it was so crowded. It was like just the molecules bouncing off of each other, and you didn't have individual will as far as what direction you were going. You just sort of bounced off of people. Fact from the 1990s. Throughout the entire 1990s, I did not have a cell phone. And in fact, through the first half of the current decade, I still didn't have a cell phone. I've only had a cell phone since the middle of 2006, and I don't even own a cell phone right now. I have a cell phone the company I work for gave me. It's a BlackBerry, and they gave it to me mostly used for email, but it also works as a cell phone. But that's fact number 5. So I'm going to tag 5 people. I'm actually going to tag 6 people, and here's my excuse for tagging 6 people. The first 2 people that I'm tagging are going to be subscribers of mine, but in both cases I know that there's reasons that they may not be able to respond, so I'm going to tag 2 of them and try to count those as 1. If they both respond, that's great. And I think it's unlikely that all 4 of the others will respond anyway, so I probably won't have more than 5 responses. Although, if I get 6, c'est la vie. Anyway, my first 2 tags are Sarah Marie 20, who may not be able to respond because at the moment she doesn't have internet access in her new apartment, and Ms. Science Mariana, who may not be able to respond because she's been too busy with her thesis. My other 4, Contemplator, aka Marion, Bombonide 20, aka Connie. She hasn't made any videos lately, but I see that she still logs in. The only ones that were actually subscribers of mine were the first 2, but I'm going to message the others and hope that they get the message. Killer Claire, the I Can See, aka Belle. She's from Australia. And if I change my mind, if I discover in my copious research that some of these people have already been tagged, I may change my tags on the actual, I'll put my actual tags on. Let's see, it's stage left. Goodbye.